Why is networking more important than ever, and how do you get over your fear of networking? I'm Emilie West, I'm a career coach, and I'm here to help you achieve more success with less stress. Today we're talking about networking because in my experience, networking is one of the biggest investments you can make into your career, and yet loads of people hate doing it. So I want to help you get over that. But first of all, let's just talk about why it's more important than ever, particularly if you are looking to get a new job in the next year or so. So one of the difficulties that we now have because of ChatGPT and other AI tools is that when people are applying to jobs, they're often using chat to produce their CV, and then the recruiters at the other end are using chat to filter the CVs. So what do we end up with? Lots of CVs and covering letters that are actually very similar, and it's harder to stand out. And then recruiters and hiring managers at the other end using tools to filter them. And so it's much harder to stand out and get in front of a hiring manager. So what does that mean? Well, it means that if you want another job, it's going to be much easier to get it through your network, both because they can push your CV forward and make it stand out, but also because hiring managers are finding it harder and harder to select clients for interview based on their CV. So what they're finding is when they're looking at these CVs, they all look the same, they don't know who to bring forward to interview, and then when they get people to interview, they're finding that they often don't match up to the CV. It's a bit like dating, where maybe from the dating profile, they've got very high expectations, and then the candidate turns up and they're not meeting those expectations. So what do hiring managers do if they're repeatedly disappointed by interview candidates based on the selection through CVs? They start asking their networks and asking if anyone knows someone good to fill a particular job. So this is why the network is becoming even more important. Now, a network is something you need to invest in over several years. So you might be looking for a job now, and someone who you've connected with 10 years ago could be helping you with it. But if you're afraid or uncomfortable with networking, you might not have invested in your network. So I'm now going to share how to get over your fear of networking and how to invest in it from day one, so that if you're looking for a job in a year's time, you're going to be in a much better position to get it. The number one reason people don't like networking is they say it feels awkward and transactional. And that's fair enough. If you're meeting someone for the first time and you're going in there with the mindset of, I have to get something off this person, then it will feel transactional and that won't feel great. But I always encourage my clients to approach it differently. Approach networking with curiosity. I'm in this room to get to know these people in this room and just find out who they are and what they're doing and what they're here for. So you're very much focused on the other person, not on, I have to get XYZ out of the people in this room. If you approach someone with that genuine curiosity about their role and their life and their challenges, they'll probably reciprocate and ask you similar questions. And again, if you're at a networking event, people understand this is how the interaction goes. And then all you have to do is just swap details or connect on LinkedIn. Don't feel pressure in that moment to tell them all about your skills and your job or give them your sales pitch if you're selling something. The point of networking is just to make that initial connection and then follow up with an email, or if you don't get their email address, with a LinkedIn message, just saying how nice it was to meet them. It doesn't need to be more than that. Another reason is some people just don't like meeting strangers. They worry that it's going to be awkward, that that person will judge them. Again, this is a natural fear because at the end of the day, when we meet a strange person for the first time, our brain is saying, is this a friend or a foe? So it is natural to be afraid of speaking to strangers. The way to get over it is practice speaking to strangers all the time, not just at networking events. I get my clients talking to the person next to them in the queue for coffee at Costa, or the lady who's serving them in the checkout at the supermarket, or chatting to the barman who's making them a drink, or going up to someone in the street and asking for directions all the time. Just practice over and over again, approaching strangers and talking to them. And very quickly, your brain will calm down and stop seeing this as a threat, and you won't be afraid of doing this anymore. So don't make it transactional, just be curious about the other person. Practice talking to strangers. And ultimately, if again you're really worried about feeling transactional, focus on how could I proactively help this person? So it's almost like I've made this connection, now I'm going to make a deposit in the bank account of this relationship first. So once you've connected with someone, you might say, what challenges are you facing? Maybe I can help you. Maybe you can connect them to somebody else. But look to pay into that relationship. And then in a year's time, when you need that person's help, you might reach out and contact them and ask for help back. Now, the other thing is most business people understand how networking works. So they understand that at some point a connection might reach out and ask for something. And that's okay. And you might ask for something and that person might say, no, I can't help you. And that's also okay. But you do have to get over this fear of rejection. So again, one of the ways we do this is by exposing ourselves to lots of rejection. I had a client recently who was really uncomfortable with networking and connecting with people on LinkedIn. So I gave him the challenge of connecting with 100 people on LinkedIn, which you can do. You can just search for people by job title and you can manually click and select 100 people in a week. And then I asked him to ask 20 of them to go for coffee. And he hated this idea because he thought lots of people would say no. And some people said no and some people didn't reply. But that was the point. I wanted him to get used to that. But then 2 of these people replied and then he got to have a coffee. One was a virtual coffee with this person who would never have connected with otherwise. And that turned into a job interview. So you also need to just get used to asking for things, sending connection requests. And it won't always be a yes, and that's okay. The master networkers are not afraid of a no. So these are things you can do to get more comfortable. Now, these days, there are lots of ways you can network. So first of all, I still believe in in-person networking. I think we can create deeper connections by meeting people in the real world. So do sign up to go to a conference or a local business networking event, ideally related to your sector, but it could just be on a topic that you're generally interested in. Some of my best connections have been made through non-work events. So if you're at a non-work event, just spend time chatting to people, get to know them, maybe swap details. Now, if it's hard to attend events in person, you can also attend loads of events online. The way to connect with people then is make sure you're active in the session. So if there's a Q&A, make sure you ask a question. Make sure you're active in the chat section. And then anyone else who is also active in the chat section, you can consider that a bit of a conversation. And you might reach out and say, oh, you made an excellent point in the chat on that webinar, would love to connect. It can be as simple as that. As I said also, you can connect on LinkedIn with people who you've never met. Now, it's harder to develop those connections, but you absolutely can. Maybe there are people in your industry who you respect. You can connect with them and say, oh, I really love your posts. So do reach out to people, and it doesn't matter if they say no. If they don't want to connect, they just won't reply. But for that to work, you have to have a really good LinkedIn presence. So don't just be on LinkedIn. Make sure you're posting at least a couple of times a month, showing what you're interested in, trying to share useful content with the people in your network. And then you're more likely to have people comment, and you can also comment on things that they're posting. I hope those tips have helped you just think about networking in a new way, push yourself to do a bit more of it. And if you feel uncomfortable, watch this back again and do some of the exercises to practice getting comfortable with networking, getting comfortable speaking to strangers. And I promise you, it will pay dividends in your career.